Just a minute, and then I'm gonna move the camera. That was your warning.
It's okay. I'm down now.
So,
Am I out of it?
only for a minute, okay?
Okay.
Yeah. Well, hello, YouTube. If you're watching, we're gonna start in about 10 minutes. So you can always fast forward this video if you're gonna watch it later, or know that we're gonna go live at about 3 o'clock. Our speaker's gonna start. Our speaker Coleman. He is a member here of the Sacramento Aquarium Society. So just keep watching, and you'll see a lot of people walking past. But we're going to start the meeting at right around 3 o'clock. All right, we'll see you soon. And don't forget, we've got the Findig the Findig event coming up in June. So make sure you check that out. I have your fish. Give me a few more minutes. I got 10 minutes to make it perfect now.
We got another announcement for anyone who's getting pizza or drinks or anything today. They're very low on staff, so be generous with your tips and very understanding that they're doing their best and it's still not taking off. They're working very hard.
Yeah. Well, not me. Sorry? I take them and bring them there. No, because those are for somebody else. But thank you. Right. Now I can clean up a little bit more.
Some pictures for next second. Wherever you want, you can go in the front.
Okay. So this is going here. Now we need camera. Take that $7. A minimum of $100. $50 the best price. She might be a little late. Just be patient.
Aaron? Someone did not pick up their piece of driftwood last month. Last dance. You did bid on it. Not yours. Have any money, well, then you got a bird conference.
Just come here running to take it back. You're probably not.
Fine, I would have to tell.
Yeah. I'm gonna save up for a sweater that's not wearing overrated. I'm gonna save up for a sweater that's no idea. Let's not leave it and talk about. I'm just going to myself.
Yeah, I saw your message. You must have been driving. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I thought it. Yeah, it's. I've never had to. Maybe. So it's not much for.
Guys, you found my dog stuff. Then you took a cloud. Chew it off. Special. Bitter spray.
Exactly.
Spray it off. Put
You know, it's been to that. You also. So I get to that. To that. That's it. It's something like four days. Right? It's interesting. Yeah. So. Um, I'm not funny. But after the explain they can like the thing, but they don't actually know. So you went from school to once in a while, then well, I like stuff. And I think they used to be much better than ever. Yeah. Something gets sticky around here, so that So it's really exactly like my house. I'm not for it. And that's right. I like her. That's what I got 10 minutes to be here. Angel, let go. That's the sentence. That's Will we be safe? Trust me. Trust me. I think I can go back. Come on.
Your hands. That's what everything else happens. Right? That's what. That right there.
Outside.
Say hello to on this live stream. There's even a gentleman named Mike. Mike is from Stockholm, Sweden. So let's say he's here in the USA. Yeah. Oh, look at little Eleanor. So, all right, we just wanted to say hello.
Everyone, we're gonna get the kick off. Thanks for joining tonight. First and foremost, it seems that we have a new recruiter at Roundtable, so we're used to dealing with them. They are not necessarily used to dealing with us. Be patient with them in case anything happens tonight, and we really appreciate the fact that they let us use the stage. So, yeah. Also, on that note, buy yourself a pizza. Give them this man to say they appreciate that. Is anyone joining us for this time today? Right, so we're gonna start over here and work our way over. If you want to just your name, where you're from, and your tanks that you keep, what you've got in them.
This is where you see it. It's from Thomas. I have a good name right now. I have a couple of in there and some off packs.
Welcome. Couple on this side of the room, right?
Hey, my name's Fred. Someone who's been posted recently about the loose. So that's what I got.
Sweet.
Yeah.
All right. Is that everyone? Anyone else? Hi.
Spencer, let me have a couple there, just a little vibe to it. Patio farmer. I've had more before, that's what I say right now. Good to see you.
Let's and props. That's how it works. All right. So let's go around and introduce our board members. For these new people, especially, if you have any questions, go ahead and find them. We're all happy to shoot you to whatever thing you're looking for. I'm the president. My name's Luke. Nico over there at the auction desk, vice president. Joey right next to him is our treasurer.
Hi, Joey.
And where's Modesta?
What's here? He's here somewhere.
Modesta is normally in that empty chair over there. She doesn't. You can typically find her there. So you'll see what she looks like in a bit. For the rest of our board members, we've got Jessica in the back corner. Jan is next to her. Where are the Joe is over here. Ready? Jay. Justin is here in the center. Jason.
Jerry didn't make it today.
Larry is not feeling well. Matt was over there here.
Matt's around somewhere. He's running around helping.
Yeah. We all got name tags, so.
Come on.
Who else am I missing? Eleonora. Eleanor is our honorary board member.
Eleanor is the advertising chair and framework coordinator.
Hey, yeah. Today for our presentation, we've got our very own Ron Coleman. A lot of us know him. Some of us don't. But he's going to be telling us about some of the cichlids that he's passionate about. And if by chance you don't get a spot to talk to him today, he's usually here at our meeting. So a great wealth of knowledge for you to find and have many questions.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks so much, Ron.
Okay, well, first thing is, Cameron, my wife is there. Thank you, Christy, for the shirt. And for putting up with me and all these fish and all my troubles. That's very important. You need support. The second thing is, we have some kids here, right? Kids love stickers. So I am going to It's actually very rare. This is for our lab. If you want the kids, if you want a sticker, you can come up and get it. Take one over here. So I did Sacramento State. This is our lab at Sacramento State. Big place. I'll be good at that. But there's some kids who show up. You got enough for all the adults.
You're right. 2 for back.
Oh, 2 from the back? Okay.
They're a little shy.
Oh, a little shy. There we go. Adults really want to. Okay, so what to do? Often when you watch documentaries or something like that, they put a teaser at the start. So I'm going to put a teaser here, and it's also my test to see if the spot where she might make a nest. And this is, you can see all this kind of stuff in your tank. It's just beautiful, wonderful, interesting kind of things. And it gets some of these incredible colors. The convict that I'll talk mostly about doesn't get quite as much color, but the same idea. Okay, I do that one. And then I want to do this one. Partly it's because I can't get the video to work inside the presentation, so I'm shutting the video down. This is the same fish. They change color when they got kids, and it goes a little blurry here. So I want you to see what they look like when they're actually doing their parental care. And for a lot of people that keep cichlids, it's all about the parenting because it's just wonderful to watch. And so we'll get to see them as they come into view. So here's, oh, there we go. I'm underwater here. Come on, there we go. There we got the one. And can you see the little babies schooling around in there? This is what they do this in your tank, actually faster than you imagine. And the boy and the girl, I mean, there's the boy and they're the girl, and they're just working, the male and female, working back and forth, taking care of these kids. And it's this thing, not so much the colors, but it's the behavior that just makes them really, really interesting. Okay, so that's the preamble. Let's see, there we go. Okay.
Ron, how big is that male?
He would be about 3 inches.
3 inches?
Yeah, yeah. I'm about this far from him underwater with my hand. They don't care. They're just like whatever. Just don't eat the kids.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to do a special something here. And it's good work. All right, question, yes.
If you're that far away from your underwater, does that mean you're inside the fish tank?
I'm in a river. That was in the wild in Costa Rica.
How big are the tanks?
The fishes are about that big. And they don't seem to mind that I'm right there. Is that cool?
Why are they so big? I thought they were bigger.
No, they're not very big. So today what I'm going to talk about is Costa Rican cichlids, looking for clues. And this particular version of it is about the convict cichlid and friends. So this is the convict cichlid right now. When I do that, do you see that at all?
Oh, yeah.
It's just bouncing off the ceiling.
Yeah.
See some of it.
See that one?
Yeah.
Okay, so and I'm a professor at the California State University, Sacramento. So let's proceed here. So this talk is hopefully going to have a little something for everyone, something for the beginner, and something for the advanced. It actually starts more with the advanced, but after this. So what is a cichlid? Because a lot of you don't keep cichlids. Maybe you could. Those who are just getting in, get another tank, get some cichlids. If you want to get cichlids, I suggest this one, and there's a bag right up over here. Start today, right there. They haven't bred yet. Give them a few minutes. So, what is a cichlid? It's a large group of fishes, a large family. There's somewhere around 1,700 species. We just keep discovering more of them. Lots and lots of them. We don't know how old this group is, but the estimates are at least something about 45 million years. So they've been around for a long time, longer than many people think. And somewhere around 20 million years ago, they split into the old world ones and the new world ones. So up here, you'll see a bunch of cichlids from East Africa and West Africa. Those are what we call the old world cichlids. And then there's Central and South America, which are the new world ones. Yes?
Dinosaurs exist?
That's a very good question. We know the dinosaurs ended about 65 million years ago, so it was right up the edge that they appeared. So very interesting. So we've got the old world and the new world. And then what I want to do now is give you a little bit of a framework. There's no test. I know I'm a professor and it's exam season, but there's no test. Hold on for a second. And I want you to give you a bit of a framework so you understand where these conflicts are. Okay, so there's a bunch of lineages in the Americas. So within the Americas, there's a bunch of different groups. A lot of work trying to figure out how these are related. So there's things like harrowing cichlids. That's where we talk about those. Pike cichlids. Some of you have seen these long, predatory. Would like to eat all the other cichlids. Pistogramma are little dwarf guys, which we get in here. Beautiful little tiny ones. South American. And the peacock bass, great big predator kind of things. So there's a lot of different lineages in there. Within the what's called harrowing cichlids, about 124 are found in what's called Mesoamerica, so Central Central America. Okay, so and we're going to talk about all of it. Sometimes people through the whole batch, we're not. I just wanted you to get a picture, and I didn't take this. Aldrich Rican is another scientist, a Czech scientist. He put this together. It's a beautiful sort of display of there's just colors and shapes and sizes. This is just this harrowing cichlids. There's one whatever you like. If you like green ones, there's green ones. If you want red ones, there's red ones. If you want red and green, well, there's red and green ones. It's all sorts of different shapes and sizes. And a lot of work trying to figure this stuff out. Because the interesting thing is that Central America is actually not that big. You know, South America is really big. Central America is not that big. You can go across it in a few hours. So why so many different fishes? That's the interesting thing. And I am not going to go through all of those cichlids, but there's lots of books available for those of us old timers who like books. I can find some of these. And of course, there's just tons of stuff on the internet. It will help you a little bit if you sort of keep in mind what I'm talking about here, if you're ever looking for one, because one of the challenges as we understand more about these fishes, their names change. They change like every week. It's just like name of the week. Some of them, even as a professional in the field, I can't even keep track of the changes. So, of the 124 species of cichlids in Mesoamerica, the best one is the convict cichlid.
First name is supposed to be the one that's moving.
Well, because the names change, it's a good question. As we understand more about the relationships, the names have to reflect those. And so certain parts of the name can change and certain parts can't. And so that is a challenge. The very second part of the name, what's called the specific epithet, that almost always stays the same. So that's your best bet. So septum fasciatus has been septum fasciatus for 100 years. But whether it was Hero septum fasciatus or Cyclosoma septum fasciatus or Herichthys, that's changed all the time. Okay, so it's the best one, and I'm a bit biased. They're a wonderful little fish. And so what is a convict cichlid? So what a convict cichlid is, not on the test. I want to show you that there's a large group of these mesobarythid cichlids, okay? Lots of them, and we're trying to figure out how they all go together, and this changes all the time as we learn a lot more, and it's changed a lot in the last 10 years as we do a lot of molecular biology. So lots changed there. So we got this whole big thing. We're not going to look at all that. We're going to take a chunk of it from here to here, which is this, which is getting way too big for what we're going to talk about. And then within that little chunk, there's a little part here, and this is where we're going to focus. We're not even going to do all of that. So what we're looking at here is this guy right here, Nigrofasciatus. That's the convict cichlid, and it has some cousins. It's got a fish called Sahica. I'll show you a little bit about that. I'm not going to show you anything about Nanolitius, and it's got Myrnae and Septum fasciatus. This is a little group. They all kind of that same little body, and they're all great aquarium fish. There are other Central American cichlids which are not great aquarium fish to get too big. These guys are good. So that's what that's showing is how they're related or how we understand them to be related. I realize it's pretty good. That is exactly right. That's why you got a sticker. Okay. So here's what we've got. We're going to focus on this guy right here. So you don't have to, the rest you can just let go if you don't care. If you are interested, I can give you the latest paper on how all of this goes together. It's a beautiful paper that really works it out. So this is our main focus here, but we're also going to talk about some of these other guys, which are the ones right next to it. And so these are some of the next ones, just so you know. This is a thing called Septum fasciatus. Our lab spends a lot of time in the field studying that fish. And it doesn't really show here. Does it show? Can you see the blue?
No,
Very likely.
The beautiful blue in some population. There's a black. Interesting. Can we get more lights off, maybe? One more bit.
There you go.
That's a little better. Okay.
Oh my God.
Wait, and they came back. It did down a little bit. Yeah.
So you
That's fine. You can leave it alone. Oh, it's a light show. That's good. So we've got the septum fasciatus, and there's this Myrnae thing, which you can't really see the difference. It looks a lot the same, but it's actually sitting in the same pose. She actually is a little bit different. We'll talk a little more about her. And then this
35.
35 up here. Yes. And then there's this other one, Sahica, okay, which sort of looks the same. It's called the T-bar cichlid. You see it's got this bar up here. So they're relatively small, nice aquarium fish. So where are they found? Where are you going to find these things? Well, Central America. So here we are. There's North America up here, South America. So we're talking this kind of zone here. I worked a lot in Costa Rica, which is right down here. And so here's Costa Rica. There's the capital, San Jose. But has anyone been? Put it on your list. It's a great country. It's a great country. I've been there, I don't know, 35 times, I guess now. Wow. It's a wonderful country. I go back every year. And it's just a beautiful place and wonderful people. So what this is trying to show you is the relatives of the convicts. So you just get a little bit of the idea of how these things are distributed. So here's Costa Rica, and this one is Myrnae. So the one is found just over here in a little pocket in the far southeast. And then Septum fasciatus is found here in the northeast. So you see how there's this one, and then there's like this one, and there's like a funny little, where there isn't anything in between. There's a mountain ridge that runs down the middle, and you find Sahica over here. So this is sort of how we would expect. Each spot has its own kind of little thing, closely related. Probably they were very close related in the past. Okay, so now let's see where the convict is. The convict doesn't follow any of those rules. The convict is found all over the top, and the more we go, the more we find it. Now, the challenge with the convict is that it's very possible people move them. You know, get one, put it in a bucket and drive a little ways and then drop it off on the farm or something like that. So we're not entirely sure if it's always been here, but we know it has been right across the top historically. So it is a fish that does well in a lot of different places. And that's why they do so well in your tanks. All they really, really need is water. Not even that much of it. So this is what their water looks like in the wild. So they occur in big rivers, but they're not in the middle of the rivers. They're not in the fast flowing stuff. They're around the edges. It's very beautiful tropical rivers and streams. That would be great convict habitat down here. This is beautiful convict habitat right along the edge here. That's what they're kind of looking for. They're looking for logs and little spaces. And sort of keep that in mind when you're setting up your convict tank, which I hope you'll do right after this time. Okay. So what I'm going to tell you about is how I set up convict tanks for what we do. So the best place to find a convict is in or aquarium. They're great aquarium fish. They really are. It's a great fish for people who are just getting into the hobby. You get to see how to take care of a fish, and you get to see the whole reproduction and parental care, the whole bit in a relatively short time. So, convicts as an aquarium fish. The writing didn't come out very large here. I learned a lesson here. Pros, they're not too hard to get. They're relatively inexpensive. If you're paying more than like $8 for a convict, you're paying too much. Okay, it shouldn't be that much. They're not fussy about water. They're easy to breed, usually within a few weeks, and you get to see the picture of what's going on. Cons. Okay, look at this. It's hard to read, but it says. So what does it say here? It says once they start breeding, they are very, very protective of their offspring, which is a nice way of saying that they will kill all your other fish.
And they're always breeding.
And they're always breeding. So they're not a good community type. Please do not get a pair of convicts and put them in with those really expensive tetras that you just purchased. They just won't last. Okay, they just won't. And if it's not today, it'll be tomorrow. This is what convicts do. It's not that they're nasty. They just want to get everything away from their kids. Everything. Okay? So the best possible tank mates are rocks. Now, I do have a tank at home, and if my wife's just watching with that, if we've got convicts in, it's about a 90-gallon tank, and there's a bunch of other fish in there. That's enough space that the convicts can do their thing. But even then, I look in that tank every day to see if any of them are breeding, because they could take over that whole end of the tank and cause a lot of problems. Yes, Ellen? We're going to get to that. Okay, that's a very good question. So how to set up a convict cichlid aquarium? Some of this applies to any fish tank, but some of it is rather particular for something like a convict cichlid, and that's why Eric originally asked me to give this talk. So you got two choices. You got really two, well, there's probably others, but there's really two choices. One is what I call the functional breeding tank. This is what we do at work. We just want to breed the fish, keep them alive, see the parental care, do all the experiments we're going to talk about. That's what we're doing. You may or may not want that. It's cheaper, it's easy to set up. You could go the natural looking tank. It's more expensive, nicer looking, okay? So I'll show you some examples of each that I made just for this talk. So here is the functional breeding tank as viewed from the front. What have you got in there? You've got, there are our plastic plants, okay? You could put live plants in there. They won't necessarily clobber them, but the interesting thing is, where these fish are found, there are no live plants underwater. So if you want to make a beautifully aquascape tank with the convicts working their way through the weeds, you can do it, but that's not how they live. Okay, it's like your choice, okay? Nor do they live in plastic plants. It doesn't matter. So what we want is a tank that the fish will live in, and I'll tell you why these are so important. You got a little sponge filter in there, flower pot, heater, that kind of thing. Some other stuff we'll talk about in a second. Here's what it looks like from above. And this is actually really important if you're setting up a convict cichlid or fish like it tank. It's arranged in a particular way. I've got the filter in the back, and I've used these plants to kind of create a kind of a wall to divide up the space. You want to have a space near the pot, and then you want to have a divided up space so that the other fish, which is almost always the female, can get away and hide. Absolutely critical. If you put all your plants around the outside and make sort of, when I was first got into the hobby, I remember the old picture books, you know, those how to set up an aquarium, and they would set everything up as sort of like a sort of like a fence around the outside. Yes?
You mean, you said hide, you mean hide or just get out on the line side?
Both. And often, yeah. So the books will tell you just set up the tanks around the plants and stuff around the outside to create a sort of a, I don't know, it's almost like a theater thing where the fish could play in the middle. That's beautiful for tetras. Terrible for these kind of fish. You'll end up with one of them, almost for sure. Okay, so you want to divide up the space. Now here is a natural tank that I made just for you guys.
Yeah.
It's not as bright as I'd like it to be, but what this is, no plants at all. Okay, this is using the kinds of things you would find with this fish in the well. Chunks of wood, so this is wood here, rocks. I didn't put a flower pot in here for them to spawn in, but I guarantee you, if you set up this tank and want to add some water to it, they'll spawn right in there. They're looking for a cave. 2 rocks like this, so like that's great. They might, if they're feeling really bold, spawn up here, but that's a little bit exposed. They really want to be tucked away, so they'll be in here. And if you've got a pair in there and things aren't going perfectly, as often happens when you put a pair of fish together, there's lots of places for somebody to go behind, go over here. And then I put in some almond leaves. Their natural environment is lots of dead leaves just all over the place. There could be a plant, but it's only a plant that fell into the river and is yet to rot. There's nothing root there. There's algae, that's it. Okay, this is what it looks like from above. So here's that little cave right there. You see, the fish could hide over here, over there, behind there. Lots of spaces. Spaces is everything when keeping these fish. So we'll get back to that. Okay, so some choices matter when you're setting up a tank like this, and some don't. And some are a little bit surprising. So things that matter, tank size, specifically the bottom area, very critical. Background, absolutely. You need a background. It doesn't matter what it is, but you need one. Kind of filtration, that can actually be really important for a reason you probably don't imagine. And structure lots. Things that do not matter, lighting. They don't care. They will literally, you could not have any light at all. They wouldn't bother them at all. Gravel size doesn't matter to these fish at all. And things that might matter is temperature. So tell you a little bit about these things and a little bit about why I know these things, because that's what we do, is we do the science to try and figure these things out. So let's set up a tank. We got a bunch of stuff. You've been to the auction or whatever, and you got a bunch of stuff. So let's put it all together and see how we're going to make a convict cichlid tank. So how big of a tank do you need? I love the 28 long for a fish like this. So we get lots of them. I have probably about 120 of them in the lab. I have 170 tanks in total. So about 120 of them are these. So great tanks. And the reason is it's got a lot of bottom area and not that much height. For fish like this, it's all about bottom area. This is a 5-gallon tank. Putting a fish, well, 1 convict would be fine in there, 2 in there. It's not going to work. It's not going to work for very long. I have spawned convicts in 10-gallon tanks, but the odds of it working are very low. And why would it work? The male's going to kill the female. That's just what's going to happen. And
Not the other way around?
Almost never. Almost never. We'll see why. Ask that question a little bit later. One of these beautiful tanks for a betta or something like that, and shrimp, these little 2-gallon tanks, not something that you would want to keep a convict in for a long period of time. It's just not going to work. Interestingly, like I said, it's the bottom area. So this tank here and this tank, a little bit warped in the picture, they have the same bottom area. This one's a little sort of squarish. This is, as far as the convicts are concerned, these tanks are the same size, even though this one's actually twice as tall. They don't care. They're not going up there. They don't, it adds more water, but it really doesn't help the fish and it's not going to help you. And in many ways, this would be a much harder tank to work with these fish than something like this, a sort of longer, skinnier tank. So that's something to keep in mind. Background. I have not done the experiment on this. Where's Brad? It's a good experiment. Brad's one of my students. Backgrounds are critical for cichlids. You can put something that you like plants or something like that. In the lab, we use this plastic table cover stuff you get at the party places. You can get like 5,000 feet for $40. And we, and you put it on the back. The whole point of it is, I'm not sure quite what the fish is thinking, but they realize that the world ends there. Wherever that is, that's the end of the world. And they don't have to worry about something coming from behind that. That's why the background is so important. If you have it open, you can see the tank from all sides. They really are vulnerable all the time. And if you watch the fish, how they behave, they'll be constantly going to the middle, trying to I wonder if somebody's coming from over there, or somebody over here, or somebody over there. If there's a background of any kind, they can hide in the corners. So something to think about. So we put backgrounds on all three back sides. That's just something to consider. So that's far more important than you think. Now this is much more expensive than this, and you could, as I did in that other one, actually painted the background. You could do that too. Your chance to be artistic. Okay, filters. Millions of kinds of filters. I have at least one of each of them, because whenever a new filter comes out, I buy one and try it and whatever. For something like these convict cichlids, really, this is your best bet. This is a sponge filter. It's not because it keeps the water cleaner, although they're really, really good at that. The problem comes later on, which is about 2.5 weeks after your convict cichlids start breeding. And what will happen is they have these little babies. Well, any of these waterfall types, and I've had dozens, if not hundreds of those, you want to keep those away from any fish that has little babies, because what happens? They get sucked up the thing. Even those, and Rich Byerly isn't here, even the little old box filters with the cotton in them, it's sad. I've seen whole families. What will happen is the parents go, oh, there's a cool piece of structure, and they go over and then the mom's outside and all the babies are inside the filter. You got to take it apart and they go right back in. So it doesn't hurt them. These ones will hurt them. They get I love these internal ones. They're actually not made. They're by Rio. They're not made anymore. Everything I loved is not made anymore. They clean a tank like you wouldn't believe, but they will suck up little baby fish. And some of these big guys, they can clean a whole school of fry out in seconds. So you want to be careful on that. These guys are relatively small fish, so you don't need, 900 gallons per hour filtration on a convict tank. And I dare say, sometimes I have no filters on a tank. Yes.
What about using sponge filter on your tank?
Do that. Then I think, why not just put the sponge filter? Speaking of sponge filters, they're so easy to clean. So if you've not experienced this, what it is, it's a sponge. The air comes down here, it goes up the tube, which draws water. The water comes in through this foam. Don't make your own with just foam that you got from an old couch. It's a different kind of foam. Yeah, it doesn't work. Your couch is closed cell foam. This is open cell foam. You can buy it in chunks, but don't just go get some foam at the foam store. And this draws in the material from the water. The interesting thing is it's not even the mechanical drawing in the fish crap. How it works is there's so much surface area on here. You get just tons of bacteria growing in there, and it's the bacteria that are keeping it clean. They're just great. And with 170 tanks, it's a lot to maintain between myself and my students. You take this thing out, you rinse it under the sink, and you're back in business in 2 minutes. You don't have to rinse it in special water. You don't have to rinse it in tank water. You can rinse it. I rinse it in lukewarm water because I don't like my hands getting cold. But other than that, just rinse it, put it back in. You're good to go on to the next one. So I highly encourage this kind of filter. And the babies will eat little bits of food off of the filter. So that's a win-win. Not gonna kill them and it's good for them. So that's why that's important. Structure is everything, as I've said before. So I had lots of structure here in the natural tank with wood and leaves and rock, stuff like that. And the functional tank, some plastic plants, that works fine, okay? So why is this so important? Oh, you can get green plastic plants if you want. They tend to go with the green, but you can get purple, you can get blue, you can put fluorescent pink. The convicts don't care. They really don't care. They're not seeing this as something they're going to eat. They're seeing it as they're seeing it as something they're going to live in and around. So, 26 is up here. 26 is up here. So yes, you can use those purple plants you put away in the corner in the cupboard. Yes, you can use those. The convicts will like them. Okay. So why do I know that structure is important? I've told you a bunch of stuff. So how do I know this stuff? We do experiments. I don't expect you to read this. What I'm showing you is that there was a particular student involved here. This is Anthony Barley, who, by the way, has just became a professor at Arizona State, which makes me kind of proud. He did this when he was a student. And what he was interested in is saying, well, people have said structure is important. So how important is it? But what he did is, you can see very vaguely over here, we had two tanks. We had a tank that had a little bit of structure, and we had a tank that had a lot of structure. And then what Anthony did is he sat there with a little clicker and watched very, very carefully for periods of time. And watched how much chasing went on in each of these two trees. And this is what would happen in your tank. If you had a tank with very little structure, so it's basically wide open, how much chase added? A whole bunch of structure. Do you see how much the chasing dropped? Some of them we did the other way. We started with them with a lot of structure and then took it away, and now they're chasing each other all over the place. So it really does work. We've done this quite a few times here. That structure really important. Sorry?
Is there a way to get no chasers? Because on that graph,
If you put in a real ton of stuff, you can get no chasings. The problem with putting in a ton of rocks and plants and that is then you don't see your fish at all. Which you're like, oh, I got all these wonderful fish. They're great. I had this catfish once. I had it for 23 years. I saw him like 4 times. This thing. So he lived a long time, but he'd make an appearance every 3 years or so. So you got to decide what you want to do. Breeding ponds. This is see, Ellen and I planted to ask these questions. They lay their eggs in caves in the wild. Now, you could make caves out of rocks. The easiest way that we make caves is out of a flower pot with the bottom knocked out. And it's easiest for us to see the eggs. We can count the eggs, take pictures of them. You just lie it on the side, and 99 out of 100 times they will lay their eggs up on the ceiling, like right there at what I would call 10 o'clock and 2 o'clock. It's almost every time that they lay them there. Now, if you want to make a cave that is natural, this is the way to go. Okay, they love this. They're like, oh, this is fantastic. It's a whole cave experience. And they go in, but of course, what happens?
You can't see it.
You don't see it. You don't know whether they've laid eggs. All that happens is eventually they'll come out of the pot with their little kids, and you've missed all the other cool things. So these work really well for a convict. It's the 3.5-inch flower pot. It's just get them. And sometimes if you go to a nursery or something, they'll even have a bunch of broken ones that they can't sell. You're like, I could use that. Like whatever, just get the broken ones. Like, yes, that's great. Then you break the heart. You say, who's just going to break your ones anyways? Try not to break them. You're going to smash them. How you do that? You take a large screwdriver and a hammer and you hit it. And actually, the bottom comes out. You can get quite good at it. So, okay, gravel. They don't care. This is little or big. I try not to use really, really fine gravel because it gets hard to clean. So something that's my hand, so it's, that kind of stuff is fine. Bigger is fine too. It doesn't matter. It's not that important to them. In fact, in many places where they live, there's no gravel at all. It's just rock. So nets. Now this is my pet peeve. And I'm sorry if I offend anyone. Every time I go to a fish store and I want to get fish, let's say it's a new person, they get this little teeny tiny net and they chase the fish for like an hour and a half.
I know.
It's like, don't do that. Don't do that. Get a big net, catch all the fish, pull out the ones you want. It's much less stressful on the fish. They don't want to be chased. They don't know when you stop chasing. Maybe you're going to come back later and chase them again. Try not to chase them too much. Get a nice big net and catch them. And it's okay to handle these fish. As long as your hands are wet, you'd be amazed what you can do with a convict fish. You can pick them out, you put them on the table, we measure them all the time, we do all sorts of things.
Using 2 nets to sandwich them is even quicker.
Yeah, and there you go.
Yeah.
And it's like, and you're done. And it's actually after a while, some of the fish that we measure a lot, they get very used to it. It's like, oh, catching time, measuring time, going back. It just doesn't seem to bother them much. Okay, pet peeve time. Now, something that you might consider getting, you could have a separate tank for in case of issues, but that's actually less good. I love these things. They were made by Blue Star. And of course, since it's a product I love, Blue Star closed their business and you can't get them anymore. So it's what's called a net breeder box. They do make these very fine net ones. Those are not going to work well for convicts because they chew their way through them. They just like chew and it's like, that was fun. What's the next puzzle? Like, oh, that cost me $10. Please don't do that. These ones, Marina makes these. It's a solid plastic box. That's pretty good. They're more expensive. There's some that even have a little motor. You don't need that little pump. What you want to do here, why you have this, is to keep the fish in the tank. These are penalty boxes. Okay. So if you have boy and a girl, boy is chasing the girl too much. He needs a timeout. And you catch him and you put him in this, and he can sit there staring at the other fish and going, well, the error of my ways. And they do seem to hurt a little bit. And what it does also, explore all the nooks and crannies of that tank so that if they need to know, they know exactly where they can go to get into where the other fish can't get them. So that's why in some ways it's better to do this than to take that fish entirely out of the context and bring it back. That's more disruptive. So it's kind of like, yeah, I don't know if they really think about how bad they've been, but your kids, really, when they're in the court, do they? I don't know.
Yes,
Eleanor, time out. Do you really think about the error of your ways? Not really. Okay. Only once. Lighting. In most cases, the fish do not care. Too much lighting can be a challenge for fishes like cichlids, and the reason is they don't occur in the middle parts of big bright rivers. Any guesses why?
Big fish.
Big fish and birds.
Yeah.
Kingfishers nail him. So they're like, they feel really exposed if it's really, really bright. They're like, something coming from someplace, okay? Which is actually why when I work underwater in the tropics, if you stand over the fish, they get very excited and nervous. But if you go in swimming with them, if you have a big tank, you try this at home. Rich Byron, they let you get very close because they can see the whole deal. It's that sort of what they're afraid of is herons. Herons that come down from above and grab them from their world. So don't make it really, really bright. This is another interesting thing because in the tropics, day length does not vary throughout the year. These fish are not sensitive to day length. So here it's spring now, so a lot of plants are like, oh, it's spring. Must be the days are longer. We're going to do the flowering thing. It doesn't work that way in the tropics. The day is always the same length. So what that means is that there's been no selection for them to be sensitive to day length. They just don't. They don't know. They don't care. It doesn't matter whether it's long or short or whatever. They will sleep at night. So if your room goes very, very dark, they will sleep at night. They don't have to sleep. I've never, in 40 years of doing this, I've never seen a fish say, I'm tired, I guess. Need a break. And actually, I would be a bit cautious about making your room go really, really black. It would be better. Some of these LED lights have a sort of a blue mode, because one of the ways that cichlids do get freaked out is if it goes from really dark to really light, and their usual response is to jump. And I've had cichlids this big, just they're like, whoa, and they run into you, they take off. So better not to do that. Have a little night light in there so they get a little bit of light. Yes.
We choose Paku, they'll chew his toes off.
Yes, they will. So you don't have to worry about that with these. So a little bit of light is good. And the amount of light does not affect their breeding or not. The light is really just for you. It's for you to see your fish. That's you can make the light whatever color you want. If that's what you like the fish to look like, that's fine. Okay. So don't try not to flip those lights on suddenly. In our fish rooms, we have different banks of lights that go on staggered. So it kind of goes da 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 da, and then at night it kind of da 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 down. But there's still always a light in there. Okay. You need a thermometer. Or do you? Another one of my sort of things. So you can buy all sorts of thermometers. We have very, very high grade thermometers. This one can do 0.2 of a degree Celsius. It's about $60. You're like, I don't want to spend $60. I could buy some shrimp or some fish for that.
I know.
Okay, and then it's like your $30 one. Then it's like your $2.99 one, the hammer job. Okay. There's this one. I just got this the other day just to show you. It's a flue ball digital one. Okay, and then there's like this one, which Penplax has been making since I was a kid, and I love this thermometer. I'm going to show you why. So lots of different things to tell you the temperature. Well, how important is it that you know the temperature? Let's talk about that. So first of all, let's look at the device. This is the Penplax one, and I love this one. So it's a metal thermometer. It's got two little brackets here and here, and it's got a glass tube. But the cool thing is, the metal brackets don't hold the glass tube very strongly. So if you would like your temperature to be different, you could just slide the glass tube down. There, you can see this one I slid way up, and the temperature there is almost 30. Here I slid the thing down, and see it's only 21. I wanted it to be cooler. It's you got to be careful what you get, when you buy these things. And say, well, does it really even matter that? So let's should I speak 0.2? Don't save your money, buy fish. Okay, and that's because for fishes like this, the temperature doesn't matter that much, and it actually changes a lot. So let's look at that. So what is the water temperature in the wild? I know this because I have spent 35 trips, 30 years, and an obscene amount of money. My wife is still watching. Trying to see exactly what the world is like for these things. By measure, I have these very sophisticated temperature devices in rivers in Costa Rica. Okay, and so this is what it looks like. So what does it look like? So this is one here at one spot. It's a computer that's at the bottom of the river, and it's measuring the temperature every half hour. And what do you see? It goes down a lot, an awful lot. So this is we're going through a year here. So for each one of these little blips is like a day, and here's degrees. It doesn't even matter what they are. I'll zoom in a little bit. So here on a particular day, we go over here, which you can't read. I'm sorry about that. This is 26.5 Celsius. So that's 80 degrees Fahrenheit, 80 degrees. That was in the middle of the day. And then at night, it was 24. Wow. So they don't care. They just don't care that much. Now, I wouldn't put them down at 19. Okay. Although, little side, I don't have a slide for this. We've been doing some interesting experiments. The young fish cannot handle really, really cold water. We've taken the eggs down to 5 Celsius? So 40, perfectly fine. They develop it at 40 degrees Fahrenheit, no problems at all. So and we've had them almost at 100, and they're fine. They're just fine. So some of these things, you know, you don't spend all your time fiddling with things to get it just perfectly, because it doesn't matter to them, at least in terms of them staying alive. In one day, it can go hot and cold. This is in the same spot, hot and cold, hot and cold, hot and cold. Okay, so it's okay. Oh, relax here.
Yeah.
And I hate it when people tell me to relax, but relax. It's okay if you do not know the exact temperature. And it's okay if your tank does not stay at the same temperature all the time. You should get a thermometer, but don't get the $60 one. Okay? Does it even matter? Well, this is the other side. It can influence things. So, most fishes, including convicts, are cold-blooded. It's called a quicklyism, meaning that the fish's body is the temperature of the water. And a bunch of things like growth, development, reproduction, aggression are all dependent. Sorry, I'll move back. You don't have to. I'll move back over here. Sorry, I'm just messing with videos.
I've just given up on you two.
These things here are going to depend on temperature. And so you can decide what you want by the temperature. If you want fast growth, turn up the temperature. They'll grow much faster than at colder temperature. But you're also going to get some other things there which you may or may not want, or at least we thought you would. So let's see if that actually works out. So in warmer water, your fish will grow faster. That's actually easy to show. They'll also eat more, so you put more food in, and they're going to make more waste. We didn't measure that, but that's pretty obvious. If you do this, you're like, oh, clean that filter a lot. They will also be more aggressive. Will they? Show you that one. And they're more inclined to breed at certain temperatures, but that's a little tricky. So how do we know these things? We do experiments. So this is another student. This was Nate and Nate. That's Nate, and that's Nate. They did this cool experiment where we took a bunch of convicts, put them in some tanks, and then we would again look at things like their biting and this sort of stuff. And then we would change the temperature. And let's say we would take the same fish and take them from cold water to hot water the next day, to cold water the next day, water the next day. So it didn't bother me. It just changed their behavior. And so this is what it looks like. So each bar here, pair of bars, like this right over here, this is fish number 12, okay? And the blue, and difference? A lot, okay? It makes a lot of difference. So you're wondering, why are my fish so aggressive? Have you got them in hot water? That'll do it, okay? And if you want to tune them down a little bit, you could consider taking that temperature down. Now, there are consequences to that too. So we've done that a bunch of times with some various students. That's kind of a fun one.
Now, those pairs that didn't show.
There's whenever you do experiments, as you know, there's some that decide, I'm gonna mess with you, I didn't bring you to instructions.
I'm gonna follow up. Did retesting those pairs would be the same, or would?
Hard to say, we don't retest. So we do a pair of fish one time, and then we do a different one and a different one and a different one. So, and that's an interesting question. How can it's pretty good.
So why
Yeah.
did that happen?
So, yeah, that's a really good question. Sometimes the fish don't do what we want them to do. And that tells you interesting things. Maybe something was going on here in this particular tank at that time. It could be that a bunch of people have walked by the tank, and so the fish got very excited. That will do things too. So that's why you have to do a whole bunch. But that is very good. I'll sign you up for the next experiment.
Same amount of fight.
Yeah, sometimes it's the same. So here's another thing that matters is how long this reproduction thing, how often it happens and how long it takes. So we do a lot of stuff with fish eggs, Not gonna go into all that today, but we could take the eggs. Oh, by the way, you can take the eggs of these fish, you could take them out of the pot, you can take the pot out of the water, you can put it on the counter, you can boil water, have tea, make coffee, all fine. You don't have to be like running over here, running over there. You can scrape the eggs off of the pot and put them in other things. They're just amazingly resilient. So don't be afraid to try things. So we take these little eggs and we put them in these little cups and we put heaters in and we put them at different temperatures. And I know some of you have seen this before, but what this shows is these are all brothers and sisters eggs. They're all related. And we just put them at different temperatures. And you can see that if you put them at cold, so that's about 74 degrees Fahrenheit, 22 Celsius, it takes 5 days for them to hatch. If you take brothers and sisters laid at the same time and put them up here at 34, that's getting really, really warm. They hatch in 2 days. So you can speed things up. You can slow them down. And if you are planning to go away for the weekend and you don't want your fish to hatch, you can just turn it down a little bit. And you can- so actually, we've done this so many times with so many fish. I can tell you within 10 minutes, if I know when they laid and I know the egg size, I can tell you within 10 minutes when they will hatch. It's that precise.
Does it affect the sex ratio?
On these convicts, no.
No.
But in some fish, it does. The Proventus, it does. So these are all interesting things. Yes, Alex?
So those are all the triangles like the babies or the eggs?
Yeah. Yeah.
So why is
You got
there two
outline.
triangles there?
Over there?
At the top?
Oh,
Yeah.
that's just a symbol. Sorry, that's a spot.
Oh.
That's just a symbol to say that each dot is a convex cyclid. So I actually have a graph which has a whole bunch of other species on it, but I didn't want to share it. Ah, you're really catching like okay. So here's another one. So this temperature, which you may or may not record all that accurately, about a little bit or not, does it really matter to the fish? They're going to grow faster in the warm water, be more aggressive. What do they really want? So this took a long time to get this to work. And this was the student Bianca who did this for her master's. And so that's Bianca up there. And we're going to talk about this apparatus and this data. So this is the apparatus. This is version 3. There was version 1 and 2 that didn't work. But version 3, what this is a long tank. It's about 6 feet long. Okay, so 6 feet, plexiglass. It has barriers. See here, there's barriers which are sort of solid, 3/4 inch plexi, but not quite. There's at the front corner, and I didn't put a close up. Right up here at the front of each of that barrier, there's a little cutout. And the cutout is big enough for a convict cichlid to swim from this chamber to this chamber to this chamber to this chamber. The plexiglass is thick enough to insulate them so that if you put a chiller over here, which is basically an underwater refrigerator, and crank it up full, I wasn't paying for the electricity. And then you put 300-watt heaters on this end, and crank them up full, you can get 10 degrees Celsius across this thing. And there's
chamber?
this chamber might be 22, and this might be 4 and 26 and 30. And then we just put the pair of fish in. Now we put them not in one, like I put the male down here and the female here, so they have to swim through. They figured this thing out. It's like a little maze for them. In 5 minutes, they're like, oh yeah, we just go through here, we get over there, and then they're like, yeah, we like this one, okay? And so this way, we can actually ask them, if you had a choice, where would you prefer to spawn?
Well, that's a good.
And so here's what we got. Each one of these are different pairs spawning. These are the 4 choices that we gave that particular pair. So this is in Celsius, 26, so that's just below 80, 28, 30, 32. And the arrow indicates the one that they chose. See that they decided 26 was too cold, but given a choice, they preferred the 28. The next pair, we shoved everything down in terms of heat. And so we had a 24, and they chose the 26. So we see it's something in here. This one, there. You see how we're dialing in? It's somewhere for convex cichlids. It's around 27, 28 degrees is what they really like. Now, if you don't give them a choice, they will spawn at 34. I've spawned them at 20. You give them long enough, they're like, well, I guess this is what we're going to get. So been 4 days, they will spawn, but this is what they actually want, which is an interesting issue. So, okay. In your tank, you're probably not going to do the 300-watt heaters turned on full. You're going to buy heaters, okay? So heaters, which heater to get? That is like the worst choice in aquarium keepers. It's just I have all of them. Times, you know, the digital ones that say they're going to record, they don't. And the cheap ones, well, I went through about 50 of these. They last about a year, and then your biggest problem with the heater is when it dies. Some of them die by not going on. That's the best situation. Right. The worst is they die by only being on, and then you get fish soup. And so, and it's a horrible thing. You go in and like, what's that? Oh boy, and there you can see they're floating. That's why I tend to go with lesser powered heaters, so that if it sticks on, it rises up more slowly. You put a 300-watt heater in a 20-gallon tank, and if something goes bad, it's just, it's going to go bad very quickly. And another thing, which I meant to get a slide of, but these ones, my favorite heaters are the Evo Jaegers, like I said, now made by Eheim. They have a little dial in the top which has numbers. Those numbers mean absolutely nothing. Well, if it says 89, that means it's less than 91. But we've tested these. It doesn't mean it's 89. It could be 82. If you dial it up to like when it's those things are basically random as to what temperature they will tell you. I'm testing bunches of, they're like, it says it's 23, and I look at the real thermometer, it's 29. It's just, they just, I don't trust them. And it's the same technology that's in here. I wouldn't trust them. A good, what's called a thermistor, costs more than a few bucks, and you get what you pay for on this. So anyway, the bottom line of heaters is they all break. I have probably 5 buckets or just heaters that I convinced myself I'm going to repair them.
When you retired.
When I retire. And they all break, just watch your heaters. Okay, so breeding convicts, matchmaker. Does anyone know that? Am I too old? Okay, so you know. Okay, so how do you tell the boys from the girls? And I was making this last night. I couldn't find a good picture of a boy. But this is a girl. The girls have blue and green up here, and not always. And so I had a student very interested in this. What we noticed, and anyone who's kept convicts or any kind of fish for a while, you get a feeling, right? You're like, it's a girl, isn't it? It's a girl. And I've worked with convicts for 40 years, like that's a girl. So I had a student who was interested in this. This is Beth. And it's a very complex slide, but what we're doing here, don't worry about the details. It's called geometric morphometrics. And the idea is this: you take the fish, here's the fish, and you digitize the shape of it. And then you do some rather sophisticated math. And what you'll find is that the boys and the girls have slightly different shapes. And it's very interesting that the human eye seems to be able to pick this up without all this math. And after all, you get really good at it. It's like, that's a girl. The girls have a flatter forehead. The males have a little bit of a hump, and they carry their weight differently. The girls carry the weight more in the belly, and there's a thing about their eyes are a little closer to the nose, which is what all of this shows. This is what's called the warp matrix. And it shows that the boys and girls are just a little bit different. Okay, so that was interesting. They confirmed that we thought that you can actually tell them apart. There's a lot more that we're doing at that. And then we said, okay, do they care? Do these fish, do these boys and these girls care who they spawn with? And there's lots of ways of doing this. You could put two boys in a tank and put a girl and see who they spawn with. The trouble with that is it might just be that the one boy's beating up the other boy, and and that, so lots of problems with that. So we went all in, and this was two students, Kristen and Lindsay. And what they did is, I'll show you an enlargement of this in a second. We took a tank about this big, and we put 20 convict cichlids in there. So that, no, here it's right here. 20 convict cichlids with all sorts of pots. And we put little ones, little girls, and little boys, and big girls, and big boys, and medium, and whatever. And then as each pair would form, so let's say a pair decided they're gonna take over this spot. The nice thing is the female will be right in there fanning the eggs. And then as soon as they hatch, that's when the male joins. And the both of them, with so many fish in there, they're really close on the net. And Kristen actually developed the cone of silence, which is just a bunch of plastic, which she would drop down over, and we could pull that pair out. So that pair is now gone, and then we take another 2 fish and put them in there. So there's always 20 fish, and we would just do this over and over.
No, sorry.
Oh,
I have my hand right.
Cone of silence was like a tall, like to-go dish, like a, you go get some curry and you have.
Yeah, it's like a tall thing. Yeah, just so that we could very carefully close it down on them, so that we knew we had that boy and that girl, and then we could scoop them out, put the pot back, and do some more. And so here's what we found. So here on this axis is the size of the female, and here's the size of the male. And so, for instance, you'll notice here's the female, and she's 50 millimeters. So that's just a little. This is her standard length. Doesn't matter. This is a little one like this. And oh, by the way, we have spawned female convicts as small as 3/4 of an inch.
Oh, my God.
Yes, I know. Babies having babies. And, so yeah, we've tried. We had for something inch. How small can we get? 3/4 of an inch. And that's what reminds.
Seems.
I mentioned it somewhere on Facebook, perhaps I should have, that we are always in search of very large convict females. No, we've got all there is. Yeah, if anyone ever runs into or has a very large, I'm talking this big, like 3 inches plus female convicts, we really need those for something. It's good, they get to breed, but we need those. They're hard, because that's a very big old female. Anyway, let's look at one here. So she's 50. What does she like? Just below 70. But if she was 60, what does she like? Well, just below 80. The females are always choosing a male that's about 1.5 centimeters to 2 centimeters bigger than her. It's very interesting. The females are choosing. Yeah, it's not like the small girls are saying, well, I'd really like to mate with the really biggest guy in the tank because he's the most monster in the whole world. That's not what they want. They want one that is.
The males don't get a choice.
No, well, it's a collaborative thing, but most that's the female that's choosing. Yeah. So it's not that there's some sort of ideal male. There is an ideal for her male, which is what's really what's called mate compatibility. It's something we. Each female knows what's wonderful. It's very interesting. So that's what that shows. Okay, how many eggs are you going to get? Because you're going to sell these for $1,000 a piece, right? No, you're not. You're going to try to give them away. Just say no. We've done this. This is why we need the big females. We're missing some points out here. We need some very, very big females to show that basically fecundity is how many eggs do they lay. Little females lay very small numbers of eggs, as few as like 25, and big females lay up around 500 or 600. Oh my God.
So, Ron, you're looking for large females, but a large fish is an older fish. Do they lose fertility after a certain?
Yeah, sometimes what can happen is you get a really big female that's she's big because she's actually enjoyed a very good life of lots of food, and so she's just heavy, and she might not even breed at all. So yeah, that's the thing. We want ones that have basically grown like a regular fish but gone a long time. They don't get that big in the wild. They just don't get that big. So
Are the dogs little eggs?
That's how many eggs. Sorry. So this was a female that was 10 grams and she laid 300 eggs. That's what each dot is. Isn't that interesting? And we spent a lot of time counting eggs. A lot of time counting.
Right.
The dogs.
The line is showing sort of the average. Yeah,
The dogs little eggs.
go back to the eggs, yeah. Okay, so providing parental care. What people love about these fish. Here's a dad, the mom's in the background, they're wonderful parents. They guard their kids and they'll guard them. Typically in aquarium, maybe 3 weeks or so, and then after that, they start to lose interest. Got to be a little bit careful at that point if you want to keep the kids, because once they start thinking about having another set of kids, it's a very quick transition from "you're my kids and I love you to death" to just to death. And it can happen overnight. It's like, no, yesterday we're defending them against everything, and today they're going to eat them all because they've got a new batch coming. Very interesting. In fact, it's one of the things that intrigues us is that there are some cichlids like this which do this because what would happen in the wild is the kids would go away. There's other cichlids, like if anyone's ever kept some of the Brichardi from Lake Tanganyika, the little princess cichlids, they keep multiple family levels together, or the buffalo head cichlids, and the kids will take care of the next batch of kids, which these guys don't do that. These don't do that. So we look at this. How much are they willing to take care of their kids with all sorts of experiments? I'm not going to talk about all of them. But what we do is we make these little models. I can tell you how to do it. It's very easy. You take a photograph, you cut it out, you print it on photographic paper, and you coat it with that sort of plasticky, make your photos last forever stuff. Put it on a little stick or something like that, and then you threaten parents with it. That's it. But they got kids back here and they bite them, and they bite these models, and you can count it. It's this wonderful thing to do. To see them doesn't hurt them, and they bite them. And so the kinds of things that we have done, all sorts of experiments. So here's just a rundown of some of the things I discovered over the years. So first of all, both parents provide parental care. So they're both very much involved. And interestingly, if you take one parent away, you take out the male. Female is fully capable of doing everything. She can take care of the eggs, she can do the guarding, everything like that. If you take out the female, the male is fully capable of doing everything and will do everything. He can take care of the eggs and he can guard. So that's interesting. Often you don't see males normally do some of that stuff, but they're fully capable of doing it. The amount that a parent cares depends on the number of offspring. You've done lots of experiments where you take babies away and change the number. Very, very clear. More babies there are, the more care they provide. Interesting. The amount of care changes as the fry get older. So the day that they spawn, they care a little bit. And about 8-10 days, they start to reach a peak. And then they're kind of like, yeah, good luck. Then it kind of fades off. In mammals, we call this weaning. It's like, yeah, you can do it. You can survive. We've done some really cool experiments as to why it happens. And the bottom line is, it's not even just a calendar thing. They're not like counting time. They're actually evaluating the condition of the kids, and we can change this on them. And if you change it the right way, the parents will actually like, oh, these kids aren't doing very well. I think we're going to have to up our game and provide more care for longer. Fish this big doing this stuff. It's remarkable. Okay, a larger parent will care less than a smaller parent. That's interesting.
Really?
And that gets back to that thing about what size of a male does a female want? Because if she chooses a really, really big male, he won't do anything. It's amazing. I've made these pairs with this little tiny 1-inch female and like a 5-inch male, and I threaten them with the model. And the male's like, whatever. And she'll actually attack him. She'll bite him. It's like, get in the game. It's like, and there's a whole bunch of theories as to why this is, but it's very, very interesting. Which is another segue to one of the things that we're working on right now. I don't know if anyone has any way to help us on this. One of my students, Anessa, who was going to be here but can't because she was sick today. We want to measure how hard they bite. So we're always pushing the edges of technology, and we're trying to develop, if anyone knows anything about this, what's called a force plate underwater, where we can have the little fish bite it, and it'll show up on a screen, 9.2. And then another one bite it, 6.4. That's so we're always messing with different technologies to try and understand things.
You could put like a picture, please.
So
The sensor thing behind
that's exactly what we're doing. We're going to put that. The trouble is getting the sensor to work underwater because it's electronic.
Yeah.
So you see, we have a bit of a challenge there.
Stuff that makes good.
That's right, and that's what we're going to do. The trouble is, the more you code it, the more that they can't feel the bite. See, but maybe you'll solve this for us. So this is what maybe next time I'll tell you. Okay. So yeah, there's just lots of interesting things that you can do with this. The most recent, I'm not going to show you all those experiments. I will show you this experiment where we start at the end here. What sometimes happens in the wild is you'll have parents with their kids. They got their whole bunch of kids here, and another pair of parents with their kids over here, and they're swimming around because the kids are hard to control. You know, the kids are like that. The kids go all over the place, and the two groups will come together. And then it's like, okay. And the two parents are looking at each other, and they have to beat off the other parents because the other parents will eat their kids. No questions. We'll eat those kids. So we're very interested in what happens when two parents meet two parents. Do they like have a way of sorting this out? And so Colleen did this up here. You can't really see it, but what it is, it's one of those models with two fish attached to it. And so we had a pair of convicts, which we had to breed, and then we attacked them with a double model, one of which was a bigger one, and one of which was a smaller one. And what we were thinking, what we suspect for a whole bunch of reasons, is that the big male should line up with the big predator, and the little female should line up with the little female. And it's exactly what happens. And it's beautiful to watch it. They'll even like switch places, like, oh, you got to get over there so that I can kind of get him. And it's wonderful to watch, and I don't have good video of it. But basically, what this says for the male, he's big. He bites the big model the most, and he bites the little model a little bit. The female's the opposite. She's small. She picks on the little model and leaves the big model alone. Incredible. All this stuff is going on in that fish tank that you're going to buy and set up with conversation.
Do they recognize their own babies? Like if you were to switch out
Yeah,
babies at similar size?
Yes, they
tell
do.
This one's not mine.
I haven't done that work, but my friend Brian Miston has done that work. Okay, so they're wonderful fish, but they're pretty hardcore sometimes. But what he has shown is that if you take parents that have a school of kids and then you mix in some other kids, if the other kids are about the same size, the parents are like, not so sure. It might be ours, might not be. If other kids are small, this is like Game of Thrones stuff. They push the little kids to the outside of the school to act as a live eel, so that when predators eat, they kill all the other babies first.
Wow.
Oh my God.
It's harsh. It's a harsh world out
You're
there.
saying they put
The parents.
parents
They don't kill them. They push like here. You eat
the
it.
bigger prior.
Shield.
Wow.
Isn't that wild? So anyway, last thing, hot off the presses. This is what the stuff we were doing in this January. Just got back a few weeks ago, Costa Rica. I talked about some of the relatives, the septum fasciatus, and there's this thing Myrne, and this is Costa Rica over here, and because this is the Myrne. Myrne always has these horizontal stripes. Other than that, they look very, very similar, same size, same breeding colors, everything. You can easily confuse them. So here's this east side of Costa Rica. And what's interesting, let's see, is it here? Okay, show you here. Here's septum fasciatus. They're found in all these spots. And here's Myrne. And no one really knew what was going on there a few years ago. So we thought, what's going on? Do these two mix? They can breed with each other any day of the week in a fish tank. You put the two together, they'll breed with each other. And so we want to know, like, are these guys just here and these guys just there? And what we spent the last few years doing is finding little tiny creeks in the middle of the jungle that are right in between these spots, looking to see, is it the one species or is it the other species that's there? And so now let's just see. The odds of this working are 0, but let's see. It's gonna work? Yeah. Well, no. No? Did it? The video didn't play?
No.
I don't know why it doesn't. I tried it before. Oh well, it doesn't matter. It's just So anyway, just north of this, there's the species without the stripes, and just south of it, there's a species with the stripes. And we now have them within 5 kilometers of each other. You could almost throw a rock from the one to the other. And we're interested, like, do they mix or do they not mix? And it appears like they don't mix. So my student Jacinda was down there in January, took all these photographs that right at this point north, it's all septum fasciatus, and just south of that, it's all Myrnae. And our next step this coming year, we're going to do the genetic work to show are they actually hybridizing or not. It takes us to some very, very remote spots. We are deep in the rainforest, sometimes on the road, sometimes on little trail things.
The river that separates them, is there any of those fish?
So there isn't. So the rivers. Think of the rivers that's going like there's they're like this going out into the ocean. They're right next to each other. Okay, and I'll show you. It's also 3-dimensional, so it's not just flat, but it is. Can't show you that either. So these are some of the rivers. The Rio Suri is the one that has the Myrnae in it, and I can show you that. I can show you this.
Once I'm trying to get it, I said.
Do you think bodies of water connected at some point in the past?
No. Well, possibly because of flooding.
Right.
Actually, I'm just going to leave it there because the video's not working. What we're doing now is we're using 3D printers to make 3-dimensional topographic maps to show that while the rivers are next to each other, there's a ridge of mountains in between. They actually go like this, where they're interdigitated, but the fish can't go over the mountains to get to each other. You could almost throw one from one to the other, but they're separated. So this is why there's these 2 species. Anyway, that is the end of what I've got.
Do you work with polymorphs of the convicts? Or is this
Like-
completely or the natural form?
Like polar blue. So what's that?
Yeah.
If you're curious, pink ones.
Yeah.
I didn't bring these in. This is a simple mutation. It's a 1 gene recessive. So if you take a pink one and a black and white one, and you spawn them together, they'll all come out black and white, but they are carriers. And if you breed the right ones together, you'll get all pinks. It's a great little experiment for kids. It's very fun.
But have you done the pink ones with the same test to see if there's any variance?
We don't have enough. But they would behave the same.
In fact, I got a 3 large females. I may talk to you later.
Oh, okay.
Hey, Ron, we've had some very active people on YouTube. One guy, Mike, I think all of these questions come from Mike. He's been very engaged. He would like to know what the convict diet consists of in nature. That's question number 1. Go ahead.
Okay. These guys are what we call pickers. So they're generalists. They'll eat anything small that they can get. If it was a little baby fish, it was a little piece of a little worm or something like that. They're just constantly poking around looking for stuff. They will eat plants. There's just no plants for them to eat. So they're often pecking at the algae and eating the little things off of that. Yeah.
Great question. His next question, he wants to know about the rainfall profile in nature for the convicts and how often and intensity does it rain? These are very specific questions. And does the rain affect behavior in any observable way?
So I normally would talk about the rain, and I didn't this time. It rains a lot there. There's definitely patterns to it. It changes the water velocity and how fast the water is going, the depth, and all sorts of things. During the September through January, it's raining pretty much all day, every day. Right around now is the quote dry season, so it's not raining very much, but you still could have a storm. And what can happen in these rivers? So you saw that nice calm little river. That river can go up. The highest I've ever measured was 34 feet in 24 hours.
Wow.
So it goes up a lot. And that, yeah, like it just 5 instruments that go way up and way down. So this figures a lot, because what's important is that these little convicts, they don't live out in that fast water. So they have to like get behind a log, and sometimes that quiet water is moving. So it's like as the water rises up, they kind of sneak off into the forest and live next to trees and then sneak back down. It's very, very dynamic. I didn't mention the pH. People often, I mentioned the pH. 7.4 is the pH of these rivers.
Last question. What's the average lifespan that you're noticing?
See, we can't measure them in the wild because we can't keep track of them. In a tank, 5 years is a good. Some will live longer, but about 5 years. Yeah. Uh-huh.
But most animals will live shorter in the wild and longer in captivity. Most animals.
Yeah, so that's because in the wild things eat them. Anyone who eats these guys. So it's the birds. It's also a large cichlid called the wolf cichlid. So a wolf cichlid, the biggest I've measured, I put a measuring tape right next to me, very cooperative, 26 inches. 6 inches across the mouth. Wow. So if one of these was to be in front of that, I actually watched him. I was swimming at.
My hand.
He could. I sometimes go swimming at night, and I came across one of these wolf cichlids that had a foot-long catfish. Gone. Just like, so those are big predators, and that's what these little guys have to be careful of.
Ron, are you bringing fish back from your trips at all?
No. They're there, and
Yeah.
they're here. The nice thing about convicts, you can get them.
Yeah,
almost
for
anywhere.
sure. I was
Yeah.
just curious if you were collecting
Yeah.
wild fish at all. Or
Okay, thank you very. I'm always over there. Thank you very much.
So we're going to take a quick break. I'm sure some of you will have questions for Ron. He's always around here. After a 15-20 minute break, we'll start the auction. Reminder that there's tanks outside. There's some bigger ones this time. There's also silent auction and traffic. And then let's have spending flyers. If any of you want to take them to your place of work, whatever, grab one or two.
Greg, on YouTube, thank you for being with us. Sure.
I gotta figure that.
Lenore. Oh,
They don't let me bring my recliner out.